Hey guys, Jeff Glover here, Glover U. It is 12:01 Eastern Standard Time, and we're jumping back into the 7 steps to 100 listings taken. A couple things. I know we've been away for a few weeks because I've either been out of town or there's been other stuff going on. Just kind of want to refresh everyone's memory on this. So this process that I'm taking you through, this 7 steps to 100 listings, 2 things. Number one, this is the exact process that I use, and I'm still taking over 100 listings a year. In fact, probably 140, 150 I'll take this year. And it's also the same system and same process that we're teaching our associates. So just to refresh your memory, because I know we've been through several steps by now, and we're on to step 4, which is the pre-qualifying and pre-listing process. So there's essentially 2 parts. I'm going to give you some thoughts on pre-qualifying. Then I'm going to walk you through the script that I've used for 10 plus years. Of course, the script is available at gloveru.com. You can go on there. It's called the pre-qualifying script. I'm going to actually dissect it today. So I'm going to go through each question and give you some additional insight of, okay, this is why you asked the question. This is what you say when they ask this question afterwards. So I'm going to really dissect the script. And then finally, if we have time, I'm going to get into the pre-listing package. If we don't have time, if we go a little over, then I'll put that onto next week's session, because next week, Monday at noon Eastern, we get into mastering your listing presentation. So step 1 was creating workable schedule. Step 2 was prospecting. Step 3 was lead follow-up. And now we're on to step 4, pre-qualifying before you present, and the pre-listing process. So I have a few thoughts on this. Number 1, you've probably heard of the pre-qualifying term, so I don't really have to give you a lot of details on what I necessarily mean by that. Pre-qualifying is, in a nutshell, essentially getting as much information as you can from the prospect in advance, so that way you'll be more prepared for the appointment. That's essentially the reason why we pre-qualify. A lot of agents, unfortunately, don't necessarily want to know the answers to some of these questions, which you'll hear. Some of them are pretty direct questions, so they just go on any appointment or anyone that says yes to them. And while I do believe that there is some truth to you should go out on an appointment every single day, you hear me talk about that all the time. I talk about with our associates. It's written on the wall in there. If you didn't go on an appointment today, seriously, what did you accomplish? But I still think you need to take them through the series of questions and then make a decision at the end of the phone call of whether you're still going on that appointment or not. Again, I'll get to the questions in a second. But my rule of thumb has always been you pre-qualify every appointment you go on. That doesn't necessarily mean you cancel it, because my rule of thumb has always been if you're not going to stay back and prospect and find a better appointment, you might as well get out and get in front of somebody. That essentially, for my reasons for pre-qualifying, that was always the number 1 reason for me. Do I think I could stay back and find a more motivated and more qualified prospect? If the answer to that question is yes, I would cancel the appointment and stay back and prospect for 90 minutes. Well, why would you do that, Jeff? Well, because I was already planning on presenting, which would take 30, 45 minutes to present, 30-minute drive there and back. I'm already kind of locked up for 2 hours. It's already in my schedule, so I might as well stay back and prospect for an hour or 90 minutes. So that was kind of my rule of thumb. If I thought I could stay back and prospect and find a more motivated, higher qualified prospect, then I would cancel the appointment and stay back. But if I didn't, if I thought, okay, I'm better off being out in front of somebody that's maybe a so-so, maybe they'll list, maybe they won't, then I'm going to get out there and get a presentation, because that is the absolute best thing you can do with your time in the real estate industry, is being on a presentation. So I wrote down pre-qualifying allows us to set some standards for clients that we want or don't want to work with. We get to determine what our minimum standard is. So, of course, the busier you become and the more listings you take, the higher your standards, right? I have new agents all the time say, Jeff, I've set 4 appointments this week, but I haven't went on any of them because I pre-qualified them out. Well, my question would be, how many listings do you have right now? Well, I've got 3. Well, you should not be pre-qualifying that many appointments out if you have 3 active listings right now. I want you out in front of as many people as possible getting a contract signed. So as your production increases and as your listing inventory increases, well, then you can start to get a little bit more strict with who you want or don't want as clients and set your standard. All right. I wrote down pre-qualifying as it gives us control of our time and actually causes us to stand out against the rest. Think of it like this. Most consumers, are interviewing 2, 3, 4 agents before they hire an agent. Well, if they're interviewing 3 realtors and 2 out of the 3 say, okay, yeah, no problem, I'll see you there, and they just show up and present, and then 1 out of the 3 actually has 1 or 2 conversations prior to the appointment, and oh, by the way, the pre-qualifying conversations, a good 15, 20-minute conversation, which one of those 3 is going to have better rapport walking in? Obviously, the one that did the pre-qualifying. So it allows you to stand out and shows an extra level of professionalism. Think of a doctor or an attorney. They don't just, you don't just sit down and say, oh, I'm having a severe headache. Okay, we need to send you to the hospital. They go through a series of questions. which causes them to appear very professional. And they are professional, and you're a professional too. So why wouldn't you treat it the same way? So before you go out, you go through the series of questions, which I'm going to walk you through. Obviously, pre-qualifying eliminates unmotivated people. We can make the decision of what's motivated or what's not. You guys know my standard was basically anyone that's going to do something in the next 7 to 10 days was somebody that I would work with. If they were a month or two out, I might cancel that appointment and say, you know what, why don't I follow up in a couple weeks and stay back in the office and find a more motivated appointment for that day. Another thought on pre-qualifying, and again, I'll get into the script in a minute. Never under any circumstances handle objections or discuss price over the phone. Now, one of the questions does bring up price, but I don't want you to get into a lengthy discussion about price over the phone because it's very easy for them to just say, you know what, don't bother coming out. So I'll show you a trick on how to avoid talking price and how to handle objections without actually handling objections, because you don't want to handle objections on the pre-qual call as well. You got a great chance of losing the opportunity to go out and present if they don't like the way you handle their objection. So you guys have probably seen the pre-qual script by now. There's like 10 versions of these out there. I took a version that was someone else's and made it my own. You probably have a version that's your own. So I know my version and the version that worked for me for many years, so I'll walk you through that now. It's on our website at gloveru.com. It's under the seller pre-qualifying script. What I'm going to do is read through it, but I'm going to dissect each one of these and give you the logic and the reason behind why we ask what we ask. So, of course, my initial thought is if I'm setting an appointment with someone, I want to go right into the pre-qual while I'm on the phone with them. A lot of agents say, oh no, I call back and do that later. I do that another time. What if you don't catch them? All right. So the goal is to try to get into the pre-qual while you have them on the phone. Now, of course, and by the way, I have to do this too because you can tell when they're in a hurry. You can just tell that they're not ready to talk anymore. Just like set the appointment and move on. Well, then that's fine. You do it the day of the appointment or you do it the day before because you're going to need to get a pre-listing package out. But if I can get these questions out during my initial call, that's the goal. So question number one is, and by the way, it's at number one for a reason, and most agents probably leave this one off more than the rest. And I actually believe this is the most important question you can ask on the script. If what I say makes sense and you feel absolutely comfortable and confident that I can sell your home, are you planning to list with me when I come out tonight at 5 o'clock? Now think of the logic in that question. If what I say makes sense, and again, you've heard these before, right? Floyd Wickman, Mike Ferry, Bold, Maps Coaching, they all use something similar, right? So I've just taken those versions and I'm giving you mine, right? The Glover U version is my version, the one that I've been using. So if what I say makes sense and you feel absolutely comfortable and confident that I can sell your home, will you be ready to put me to work for you? Think of the logic behind that question. Now I know a lot of agents will say, well, that's a little forward, that's a little direct. Think of the logic. If what I say makes sense. Number one, I'm not even saying that what I'm going to say is going to make sense, but I know it is. And you feel comfortable and confident. So if what I say makes sense and you feel comfortable and confident, will you be ready to get started? There's a lot of logic to that question if you say it a few times and kind of think of it. And so what usually happens here is 1 out of 10 are going to say, well, yeah, I guess if what you say makes sense, then we would consider it. Perfect. What do the other 9 say? They usually give an objection. And that's the number one reason why I ask that question first, because I want to know what the objection is before I go out. So if what I say makes sense and you feel absolutely comfortable and confident that I can sell your home, are you planning to list with me when I come out tonight at 5? Well, no, that's not possible because we're interviewing other agents. We're interviewing other agents. Or they say, well, what do you charge, right? That prompts an objection. And so remember, we don't handle objections when we're pre-qualifying. Instead, we say, it's an old Floyd Wickman line, I don't know, I haven't seen your house yet, but it'll be one of the first things we talk about when I come out tonight at 5 o'clock. I don't know, haven't seen your house yet, that'll be one of the first things we talk about when I come out tonight at 5 o'clock. Well, what do you charge, Jeff? I don't know, I haven't seen your house yet. That'll be one of the first things we discuss when I come out tonight at 5 o'clock. Well, what do you think my home is worth? I don't know, I haven't seen your house yet. That'll be one of the first things we talk about when I come out tonight at 5 o'clock. If I get into a discussion about those types of things, how long is your contract, any of that, where's your office located? If I get into a discussion about any of that over the phone, I have a chance of losing them. So instead, I deflect all objections to the appointment and make a note of it. Okay, be ready for a commission objection. Be ready for a short contract objection, whatever the objection is. Question number 2. Are you looking to interview more than one agent for the job of selling your home? Now, of course, if in question number 1 they say, well, we have other agents come out, you don't have to ask question number 2. But if they don't bring it up, I like to bring that up because I want to know who I'm up against when they're meeting with them, right? And oh, by the way, if I know their personality style, which, by the way, that's one of the things on the pre-qual script, we learn their personality style. I'll share that with you in a second. If I know their personality style, I'm going to try to fit in where I think it's best to go. So, for instance, drivers and expressives, it's best to go first. Amiables, analyticals, it's best to go last. Okay? Analyticals need time to think about making decisions, and they need to analyze things. Well, if I'm the last one in, probably have a better chance. Amiables are very loyal. All right, they don't want to cancel on people. They want harmony and balance. They don't want uncomfortable situations. So they're going to maintain all the appointments and keep all the appointments. Drivers and expressives make decisions quickly. Expressives make decisions emotionally. So therefore, I want to be first when I'm meeting with a driver and expressive, last when I'm meeting with an analytical and amiable. Now, of course, if you can't time it that way, it's not the end of the world. It's not always going to be perfect, but my goal is to try to time it where I'd like to go. So when I ask the question, are you looking to interview more than one agent for the job of selling your home? I'm always finding out who else they're meeting with, when they're meeting with them. I'm just taking notes and making mental notes to myself. Number 3, tell me again, where are you moving to and what takes you there? I wrote down, remember, the why is more important than the where. All right, so, we're moving down to Florida. Great. What takes you to Florida? Oh, we've got a place there, and we want to retire there, and awesome. We're at in Florida. I'm asking deeper questions, of course, to create higher level rapport. But really, I want to know why they're going there. This goes back to those criteria questions, all right? What's important about blank? How is that important to you? Ultimately, what will all this do for you? That's a whole nother discussion. But I want to know why. The why is more important than the where in any sales, by the way. I think people focus too much on the where. You actually need to focus more on the why. Number 4, how soon do you have to be there? And, of course, a deeper question could be, okay, you want to be there by the winter. Perfect. What's important about meeting that timeline? Well, we got a place, we got a timeshare, we got this, whatever the reason is, I want to know what it is, and I'm making a note of it. So how soon do you have to be there, and what's important about meeting that timeline? Number 5, now here's where it gets a little dicey because we talk about price briefly. When I see you, so here's how you talk about price without going down the wrong trail here. When I see you, how much do you want to list your home for? Okay, and then just listen. Most cases, they'll say, well, that's why we're having you out. What do you think it's worth? No matter what they say, even if they give me a price, even if I think it's worth $200,000 and they tell me $250,000, perfect. And I'm making a note of that. Okay, they want $250,000. All right. As a professional real estate agent, I study homes and prices every day. Therefore, I assume you'll list with me at a price that will cause your home to sell. Correct? Usually, they'll say, "Yeah, we're reasonable. We don't want to overprice it." Perfect. So, what price won't you go below? And I'm always asking kind of a deeper question I want to see where their head's at. And they may come out with, well, $225,000 is pretty much their bottom. Okay, $225,000, no problem. As a professional real estate agent, I study homes and prices every day. Therefore, I assume you'll list with me at a price that'll cost your home to sell, correct? So what price won't you go below? How much do you owe on the property? Okay, gotta know the situation. If they're upside down, it's helpful. Every now and then they'll say, well, why is that important? Well, my response to that is usually, some sellers, believe it or not, are still upside down in today's economy, and it's helpful if we know that information in advance. You're not upside down on your home, are you? Oh, no, well, I owe $180,000. Okay, so there you go. You got it out of them a different way. Next, have you ever thought about selling it yourself? I get asked from time to time, why am I giving them that idea? Well, because a lot of people are thinking that, and they're interviewing realtors to get an idea of their price. And if they tell me yes to that question, I'm not going to cancel the appointment. I'm just going to make a note. Thinking FSBO. So by the way, when I'm there and I can't get a contract signed, I might bring it up. Now, you mentioned over the phone that you're thinking of selling for sale by owner. Is that still the case? Let's have a discussion around that. Maybe I can show them how that's not a good idea. I want to know before I go out so I can handle the objection once I get there. Next, would you please describe your home for me? And I wrote down in my margin, listen for their personality style. Would you please describe your home for me and listen for their net personality style? I'll give you, for instance, a driver would say something to the effect, or a high D, if you're using the DISC system. High D would say, well, what do you want to know? You should have all the information. Aren't you able to pull that up? Right? Expressive. Oh my gosh. Just wait till you see what we've done to the basement. Wait till you see what we've done in the backyard. It's like, we got a cabana out there with a tiki. They're giving you all the fun stuff, not really the details. The analytical. Well, we got 13 inches of insulation. We use stainless steel screws and glues on every single one, right? They're giving you a lot of details that might not matter, right? So I'm listening for their personality style when I ask the question, would you please describe your home for me? And that's where I make a note of that, write it down, and I use that throughout the entire discussion. Next, I'll be sending over a package of information. Will you take a few moments and review it? That's my pre-listing package. Finally, will all the decision makers be there? Oh no, my wife doesn't get home from work until 5:30. Oh gosh, okay. Well, if it's okay with you, I'm open at 6. Do you mind just bumping it back a little bit so that way you can hear the information firsthand at the same time? That way, if there's any discussion or questions, we can be in this together. Would that be okay with you? Yeah, sure, that'd be fine. Okay, good. 11. Do you have any questions before I get there? Remember, no matter what, you don't handle the objection. What do you charge? Where's your office located? Any of that stuff. Hey, great question. Glad you brought that up. That'll be one of the first things we talk about when I come out. Of course, number 12, so you know our meeting should only take between 15 and 30 minutes. Is that okay? I look forward to seeing you blank and blank. Why 15 to 30 minutes? Because I don't want them to think it's going to take all day. And I don't want to have them have the expectation that we're going to be sitting there for 2 hours talking about everything else other than getting their home sold. So I'm setting the expectation that this will really just be a 20, 15, 20, 30-minute meeting. So you know our meeting should only take between 15 and 30 minutes. Is that okay? Perfect. Look forward to seeing you then. Remember, the prequal script, even if they don't answer the way you want them to answer, the prequal script is designed to arm you with information. So that way, when you go out there, you're more prepared than the other agents that didn't do the prequal. All right, so if you need the script, go on our website. You'll find it there. Last but not least, I'm going to take, since we do have some time, I'm going to take the next few minutes talking about our pre-listing package. All right, so first things first, I got 6 thoughts on that, all right? First things first is your pre-listing package. Something that you send them, right? You can put it in a FedEx envelope. I got one here on our desk, right? You can put it in a nice FedEx envelope. You can mail it out, UPS, whatever. I just want them to have a physical package in hand prior to me coming out, all right? I wanted to have a resume, okay? This is an idea of like what our plan of action is. By the way, any of our coaching clients that work with us get access to all of our stuff. But I want to have a simple resume, all right? So on one side, I got just some simple things. I'm not making this whole thing about me. There's just one page that's kind of about me and kind of about our company, all right? So I want to have a simple resume. I want to have a plan of action, all right? I want to know specifically what you're going to do to sell my house, all right? So I want to have a plan of action. I need to know these things in advance. I want this in their hand in advance. Why? Because if they know what I'm going to do to sell their home in advance, they're less likely to ask, so what are you going to do to sell the house? Which, by the way, takes 10, 15, 20 minutes to have a discussion. So I might save myself 10, 15 minutes if they have it in advance and they're comfortable with it. Next, I want to have some actives and solds. I want to have 3 or 4 actives, 3 or 4 solds, just to give them an idea of what's selling in the neighborhood. So when they're thinking 250 and they're seeing actives and solds 180, 210, 220, they're not throwing me out of the house when I recommend listing at 215 or 199.9. If I get that to them in advance, they're going to have less shock. And oh, by the way, that's the number one thing that sellers will use to tell you that they need to think about it, because the price wasn't what they expected. Well, if they're getting an idea of their price in advance, they can't use that objection handler because they've had it for a day or a couple days, all right? So I want 3 or 4 actives, 3 or 4 solds. Next, I want some examples of success, right? I want to show them some examples of homes that I've sold in their neighborhood or near them and how long I took to sell and what it was listed for and what it was sold for. I want to give them some examples of success. I want to make sure that they have the seller's disclosure statement in advance with just a little note that says, please review and fill out prior to our appointment. There's nothing worse than sitting there on the appointment, spending 15, 20 minutes answering questions, which you shouldn't even be doing because there's a lot of liability there about their seller's disclosure. So I want them to do that on their own and have that ready when I get there. Is that always the case? No, it's not. Maybe 1 out of 5 actually fills it out in advance. Okay, but think of the time it just saved. And if you have a photographer or whatever on your team, then somebody else could come get it, or you could have them scan it and email it to you so you're not sitting there while they're filling that out. So I have a resume, a simple resume, not this like huge brag book, all right? Just something simple, a plan of action, actives and solds, the seller's disclosures, examples of success, reviews, all right? So you should take your reviews from Zillow or Google or Trulia or wherever you have reviews and put them into a simple format for them to read and understand. I want them to have reviews in advance because essentially what this is doing is, in so many words, it's saying, listen to what Jeff has to say. We did, and we had success. So I want them to have reviews in advance. And finally, my last note on it is make sure you deliver it physically. Email is your absolute worst case. If you need to email it, that's fine. It's not going to be effective as dropping it off. I made a note to myself because I remember back before I had any staff or anything like that, when I was delivering my pre-listing packages, I killed 2 birds with 1 stone. I would go deliver the package, and I was in the neighborhood. I knew I would be listing their home because my assumption is I'm going to get the listing. So I'd go knock on doors. And I wouldn't tell them what house, but I would say something to the effect, hey, I'm going to be listing a home in your neighborhood soon, and I'm curious, who do you know who's going to be moving into the neighborhood? I'm already there. I'm already dropping off a pre-listing package. Why not go 20 doors across the street? And oh, by the way, what's the worst case scenario? The seller comes home and sees me door knocking, all right? And they ask me, hey, were you in the neighborhood yesterday? Yep, I sure was. I was already looking for potential buyers for your home. So when I was already out in the neighborhoods, I would do that anyways. I would just go 10 doors to the left, 10 doors to the right, and 15 or 20 across the street. Hey, I'm going to be listing a home in your neighborhood soon, and I'm curious, who do you know that's looking to move into the area? Now, of course, most people want to know, what house are you listing? Well, they haven't signed yet, and out of confidence and confidentiality for them, I can't share that with you yet, but we'll be listing a home in your neighborhood soon. And while I have you, how long have you lived at this address? Where did you move from? If you were to move, where would you go next? I would just get into dialogue, but I would use the dialogue of we're going to be listing a home in your neighborhood soon to get a discussion going. And I would get leads that way because we know the reticular activator. We talk about hybrid farming. Chances are if one listing is going to go on the market, there's going to be another one coming on the market very soon in that neighborhood. So step 4, pre-qualifying before you go out and getting a pre-listing package in their hand. If you need to go back and rewatch this a few times, I would recommend you do so. Otherwise, we'll see you next Monday at noon Eastern for the listing presentation and mastering your presentation. See you guys. Have a good week.